Okay, we're connected. Good day, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this first event of our executive webinar series, Driving Strategic Change Through Technology, a CEO's Guide. My name is Sam Omani. I'm the moderator. In today's fast-paced business environment, CEOs are under growing pressure to adopt quickly, stay agile, and make critical decisions with great precision. That's why we launched this series, to help business leaders like you turn today's challenges into tomorrow's competitive advantages by leveraging the right technology strategies. Our first session is all about what's top of mind for every CEO right now: financial management and cost optimization. We'll explore four of the most pressing pain points business leaders are facing today. How to balance cost cutting with operational efficiency, how to manage cash flow more effectively, ways to reduce financial risk and stay compliant, and how to gain real-time visibility into financial data to make faster and more confident decisions. Joining us today are Desh Urs, founder and CEO of iBridge, and Mike Delgado, who is a senior advisor board member at iBridge, two seasoned experts who work directly with C-level executives to solve these very challenges every day. They'll share their practical insights, strategies, real-world examples to help you not only stabilize your financial footing, but position your business for sustainable growth. Now, throughout the 25-minute event, you are encouraged to submit questions and request a meeting with any of us. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat as we go. We also have articles written on these very topics that are going to be covered today. So if you'd like a copy, please let us know in the chat. All right, let's get started. Desh, I'm going to start with you. Desh, in today's economic climate, where there's so much uncertainty, what steps can a CEO take to push innovation, to stay competitive and meet the ever evolving needs of their customers?
Sam, thank you for setting up the session. Between Mike and I, we probably got about 80 odd years of experience in the tech industry. So hopefully we can bring some value to this conversation to all the people that are here. You know, the biggest challenge that we have today is that either we are rolling so fast that we are not looking at our organizations internally hard enough. And so I sort of wrote some talking points that I think that might be helpful to the people that are here. And many of these things that I'm talking about is what we do in iBridge every day of our life, right? iBridge is a globally dispersed enterprise. We have about 1,600 people in 3 different continents, different cultures, different work habits, different time zones, all these kinds of things, right? So the biggest thing that I would tell you is that, before we talk about innovation and staying competitive, we need to understand our customers. We need to understand the inventory gaps within our own enterprise. You know, when we say understanding our customers, they're not a transaction. I mean, they are the reasons why we are in business today, right? Look at your workforce. I mean, they are your most crucial asset that you have in the enterprise. So if you look at those kinds of components and keep technology aside for a moment, you'll begin to understand your enterprise a lot better, but understand your customers, right? You know, people are constantly chasing revenue, but we really need to talk about the kind of customers that you want to attract, right? The other thing that we are so busy is closing deals without really understanding margins. Not all deals are good. We all know that. The people on the event today that have joined us are very seasoned people, I'm sure, and they understand the conversation of cost and revenue. Margins are kind of critical to this conversation, right? The other thing that we have done in our organization that I recommend to our customers, and we follow through with many different tools and technologies, is help them align their workforce along the skills that we need for today's market that we are dealing with. You know, just because Joe and I have played golf together the last 20 years, Joe may not be the right person in my team. You know, the organization is changing. And those are hard decisions, right? I mean, these are people decisions, right? The other thing that I will always tell people, and we had it in one of our enterprises years ago, that 20-year-old company run by a certain team that was very good at what they did. There was restructuring of the organization, and we uncovered a number of issues that were related to improper KPIs. Setting the right KPIs and making the rank and file understand what those KPIs are, why they're being tracked, and who is tracking them, and how we are tracking them, and then giving them access to the KPIs on a daily, hourly basis has completely transformed that organization. And that is something that I recommend that people really look at and do, and we can help people to do that very easily. Dig into the data. You know, your data is an asset. We don't consider data to be on the balance sheet, but I can tell you something. If you don't trust your own data, then why collect that data, right? I mean, if everything is a gut feeling and your experience, uh, you got a problem that you need to look at, right? The when there are other things that we talk about is data is generally held in silos in enterprise because we're so busy running our businesses that we don't understand that there is uniformity data that we need before we can poke the data and do anything with the data. So when we talk about terms like operational efficiency, predictive analytics, CRM systems, and all these different tools, you've got to really understand your data. Data is the lifeblood of the organization. We don't treat it that way, but truly is. If you look at if you look at the things that I just talked about here and you begin to understand them, you know, you look at your resource optimizations, allocations, etc. I think you'll be far ahead of the game. Like anything that you could add?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, data is the treasure chest of the organization. And if you don't mind that treasure chest, you'll miss those gold nuggets that quickly become available to you. So, people, data, data-driven organization depend on it.
That's very valuable insights. Dash, CEOs are under pressure to deliver. So what advice do you have for organizations that have not considered digital transformation or have slow or stalled efforts while balancing the needs for growth?
Well, let me put it to you this way. You make a call to your bank and you quickly begin to realize how poorly digital transformation has been implemented across the planet. The IVR systems, actually, by the time you get to the person you want to talk to, you want to either shoot that person or shoot yourself. Right?
Mm.
So that's a terrible example of digital transformation that everybody talks about it and does it. The companies that have not considered digital transformation, I just want to bring a point home. It's not a fad. It is a reality. COVID taught us that remote work, dispersed organizations are things that we need to live into. The argument of work from home, work from office, all these kinds of good things have brought us to understand data, the connectivity to the office, security challenges. There are a myriad of issues around that, right? If you look at that, I always tell people it is not a fad, right? I mean, there are certain technology trends that are fads. This is not a fad. This is a requirement for your business, right? And there's a difference between digital transformation, digitization, digital workflows. These are all terms that people throw around, right? Transformation is tough. It takes time. You cannot begin transformation again without understanding your enterprise culture. If you do not do a proper assessment of your organization's culture, anything that you do in the transformation world is bound to fail. The reason is people are not going to adopt it, right? And if people are going to push back quietly, which most of the time happens in enterprises, you have wasted money, wasted time, and you got nowhere, and you're extremely frustrated. So look at your people, look at your culture, look at yourself in the mirror, and you ask yourself a question: am I going to use the tools that I'm asking my teams to use? Is there any value in that, right? So that journey begins with an assessment and multiple assessments, not a one-time survey kind of conversation, folks. So this is something that you need to understand. Again, look at your enterprise today. What kind of technology that you're using today, right? And the conversation of transformation is really driven for your customers first. Make it easy for your customers to do business with you, right? If a customer calls, they say, where are my parts? And you have to put the customer on hold and call Joe across in the warehouse, and Joe picks up or doesn't pick up, and you call the customer. It's just not a good experience for anybody, right? Okay.
Right.
I mean, everybody cannot be Uber and everybody cannot be American Airlines or whatever, the best of the transformation systems that we have. But still, you got to look at that and say, what can I do? And there are really simple ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
The other topic that I tell people is that, we keep talking about AI and agentic AI. We talk about, none of that can happen if you don't understand. Again, it's all about data. Once you have data, once you understand your workflow, then you can talk about automation. Once you begin the conversation of automation, then you can talk about the conversation about AI. Now, AI is a complicated topic, and there's a lot of hype around AI that I want all my customers and my own internal teams. We have a large engineering organization that does AI work. But the reality is there's something called practical AI. And so I'm glad the industry has come up with this agentic AI conversation today. Because if you look at that, they are bots that do specific work that machines do best with machines. But always remember, humans are the final arbitrators, right? Humans talk to humans. We are not there where self-driven cars are reality. It's in test mode. but the people that are going to bump into this car is another human, right? So we got to look at those things and look at those things carefully in our own little businesses and our big enterprises and the companies that we serve, that it is a complex topic, but you cannot avoid it. If you're avoiding it, you're just killing yourself without even realizing. Mike, anything you can add there?
Yeah, so again, I said it before, it's people, it's data, it's customer, all align for execution of the vision. That's the primary focus. And if you have the right metrics in place to not only manage, but to measure your ongoing success, then you're aligned to be in a continual digital transformation, a constant 360 view of the organization and its betterment.
Wonderful insight. So, Mike, let me ask you something. In today's regulatory landscape, financial risk and compliance are becoming increasingly complex for CEOs to manage. From your experience, what are the biggest blind spots leaders should be aware of, and how can technology play a role in reducing those risks while keeping the organization compliant?
Yeah, so great question. And again, driven by people and data and processes and workflows. Some of the big ones are obvious, right? So we all know about, GDPR, we all know about HIPAA. If you're a public entity in the US, you've got SEC rules and regulations that you constantly have to be in compliance with. And in a regulatory mode and a deregulatory mode, there's constant change that you need to stay abreast with. At the end of the day, the CEO is ultimately responsible, being the leader of the organization. But there's other executive stakeholders that are included in that. The COO, the chief risk officer, the chief compliance officer, all of them with their perspective and view of what's important in the organization